Welcome to Libertas Europae. Today we're going to talk about the European Union and Europe and how they are not the same despite what many politicians and political commentators often claim, or at least implicitly claim by conflating the two. So, at its most basic, the European Union is a political union comprising 28 countries, and Europe is a continent which contains about 50 countries. The two are not the same. The Swiss, the Norwegians, the Belarusians, the Ukrainians, they are no less European than are the Germans or the French or the Poles. And being in favor of, say, increasing the EU's power does not make you pro-European, nor do you become anti-European if you oppose the EU. And for the same reason, terms like Eurosceptic for someone who is skeptical of the EU is quite misleading. It's perfectly consistent for someone to be a strong proponent of Europe as a continent, as a culture, as a historical community, but still be an opponent of the EU. And I would even say that there's a strong case to be made that the EU, in all of its efforts to unite, to centralize, to homogenize its member states, actually runs counter to the history and culture of Europe. Europe has also been a very fractured, a very diverse, a very heterogeneous continent, and has never come even close to being politically united. If you look through European history, any genuine attempts at a European empire, for example, Napoleon's or Hitler's conquests come to mind here, have been very short-lived and unsuccessful. And there have, of course, been various long-lived empires that are based in Europe, but these were either not very imperial in their nature, like the Holy Roman Empire. It was really very diverse and decentralized state, if you can even call it a state. Or they have been very moderate in size, or they were not genuinely European empires. Like, for example, the Roman Empire was, of course, originally based in Europe, but it was really a Mediterranean empire that also had some territories further north in Europe, but really didn't control most of Europe, even in its height. And then later in European history, you have the Spanish Empire, the French, the Dutch, the British empires. All of these were, of course, also based in Europe, but most of their territory, of course, was outside of Europe, in Africa, in Asia, in the Americas, and so on. So given the huge amount of success that Europe has enjoyed while being such a fractured and divided continent, it does seem rather preposterous and presumptuous to assume that unification, harmonization are just obviously desirable. You don't even need to make any sort of argument for that. It's just clear that you just need European unification if you're in favor of Europe. And I would even go so far as to argue that it is precisely this high degree of decentralization that prevailed in Europe, in particular during the European Zenith and the 18th to early 20th century, that has made Europe so successful. You have this vigorous competition between these rival nations, and these neighbors just kept each other on their toes, and sure, that led to lots of wars and conflict, but it also created the modern world. So maybe the way to make Europe great again is not to have ever greater unification and harmonization under the aegis of the EU. Rather, maybe we should return to this older model of Europe, where we have these independent, small countries that are all doing their own thing. Maybe what we need is not a United States of Europe, but rather, as the philosopher Hans-Hermann puts it, we need 10,000 Liechtensteins. Because if you actually look at Europe, all these tiny, tiny countries like Liechtenstein or Monaco are doing great. These are the most successful places in Europe you can find. Some of the richest countries in the world. So maybe they're doing something right. So maybe Europe should return to its roots and once again become this rich tapestry of thousands of small countries, each competing against each other, learning from each other, and each in their own ways being unique and contributing something different to this great continent, rather than moving in the direction of a United States of Europe. So maybe instead of this absurd motto of the EU, united in diversity, these are opposites, choose one, either you're in favor of united or in favor of diversity, can't be both. Maybe instead we should have the motto, divided we stand, united we fall. This has certainly been the case for Europe historically. Maybe this is a way Europe can return to its former greatness. Alright, let me know in the comment section what you think of the EU and the future of Europe. And I want to thank you for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and spread it on social media, and as well as subscribing to this channel. Until next time, goodbye.